Yay, there we go. She looks so innocent, but the minute you turn your back on her, she does stuff like that. Well, let's start again. Good morning, everyone. We're going to be going over this list of, well, some of this list. First thing I'm going to do is go over the syllabus, tell you a little bit about myself. And then once we get here, we'll be starting our first section, which is on the unit circle. So let's get started with the syllabus then. Yeah, right. So hopefully right now you are all looking at 142 Canvas page, correct? Good. Okay, so our class is basically in two clumps. One side we've got Canvas, which is what you're looking at right now, and Canvas just basically is where I put all the information, right? Things that are useful, things that you need to know. And the second part is WebAssign, and WebAssign is where you'll find all your homework. You'll be doing it online, where you'll find the electronic book, the ebook, so you don't need to buy a physical textbook, you know, and things like that. And that's where you'll do your online tests. Also, as I mentioned, that's where you'll do your homework. So WebAssign is where you kind of do your day-to-day work, and Canvas is where you find things that you need. So let's show you a little list of what you would be looking at here. If I close this one down a little bit, and this one. Right. If you click on the first one, Welcome to Math 142 information page, that one there. Never quite sure how technology is going to behave. Hopefully it's going to behave well today. And what you're looking at here is basically what you need to get this course started. So you talk about the technology you need, you know, camera, video, all that good stuff, computer. You don't need a textbook, but this class uses WebAssign, and this is our class's login key. So you need to, by the end of today, I hope you do it, enroll in WebAssign. And these pages here basically take you through all the steps that you need to join our class on WebAssign. Now, when you're in WebAssign, when you first join, you get 2 weeks where you don't need to pay. So that gives you 2 weeks to get your financial aid together, right? So you can pay for it, you can pay with a credit card or whatever. It also gives you a chance that if you don't feel this class is working for you, that you can still drop the class and you haven't forked out a whole load of money that you can't get back, right? Because if you don't pay for it, you know, because you're on the the free 14-day thing, right? It saves you some money. So that's good, I think. What else do you get here? Well, here is our officer. It's 9 o'clock every day. So if you want any help, you can see me using this Zoom link. It's just like turning up at my door, but it's virtual, right? We'll be on camera and I can help you go over anything that you're having problems with. This here is the link for our class, the one that you used to come here today. And this will last for about 6 weeks, and then I have to change it. And there's all the kind of cool stuff that you'll get in Canvas. Now, there's tons of information I'm going to be throwing at you today, but don't worry about it, because every video, everything is in a video, and that video will be in Canvas, and you will find it here. So if you click on this link, and then you go and you click on week 1, in this box here, you'll get your today's lesson, right? So if you say, oh, I forgot what you mentioned about homework, or I can't remember what day something's due, you could go and watch the video. If you have, I know you get a dentist appointment and you miss a day, you can go back and watch that video and catch up that way, right? So everything is here. I'm going to make an assumption here. It's kind of hard for me not to make this assumption, that you don't mind me making videos of this class. If you get very self-conscious and you asked a question and then you felt silly, and you shouldn't really, because there are no stupid questions, there's only stupid answers and I'm the guy that does the stupid answers, right? But if you didn't like it, I can edit you out of the video, right? So it doesn't appear again, right? If you're kind of concerned, just tell me what you don't like and I'll kill it. But I'm assuming that you don't mind me taking videos. It makes your life and my life a lot easier if you can go back and catch up on your work. So it's there. And let's go back out. And officers, there's a link for it. So you need to see me in officers. If you have trouble with Zoom, here's the Zoom page. If you have trouble with WebAssign, I should have a page there. Obviously, I've forgotten to put it in. And down here, I just have a place where I put in funny videos. Some of you might be thinking he talks funny right now. He has an accent. You're thinking that, Yana, aren't you? That I talk funny. You're too polite to say it, but you're thinking that, aren't you? You think I have an accent, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Where do you think I come from?
Well, I read about you, but I forgot.
Okay. I come from Scotland.
Okay, right. That sounds about right.
Yeah. Right. But I should tell you that I do not have an accent. In case you're thinking I do, you're just wrong. I do not have an accent. I phone back home regularly. I talk to my sisters and brothers, and none of them have accents, and I don't have an accent. And when COVID Gestapo eventually let me get back to my country and to visit my family, everybody that I know talks totally normally. So I don't have an accent from my perspective. Who does have an accent? Iana, you have the accent, not me. And if you're wondering what kind of accent you've got, most of you have an American accent. And so let's give you some of the ground rules. The letters of the alphabet, it's Z, not Z, and it's J, not J. That's the proper pronunciations, right? And it was my alphabet before it was yours. So I am right and you are wrong, right? Just figure it out from that. We had the alphabet before you did, right? You've only been here since whatever, 1692. We've been here a lot longer. Most people, I'm being honest now, most people don't even notice it. After 2 days, it's just the funny way I talk, right? It's just the way I talk and it doesn't bother you. Occasionally, I might say a word that you're not sure of. Mostly, I don't. If I say something's wee, you know, I mean, it's small. So if I said that's a wee number, I just mean it's a small number. Most people figure that out. If I do use a word or if I say something that's not clear, just ask. I'll rephrase it in a way that might make more sense to you. So let's move on. What else should we talk about? Yeah, I think that page is pretty much done. Oh, some information about me. Click on this. Tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Bellshill, Scotland. That's what you read but forgot, probably, Iana. My father was a coal miner. My eldest brother was a coal miner before he joined the Merchant Navy. All my uncles and aunts, well, not my aunts, but all my uncles worked as coal miners. And a lot of my aunts worked for the coal mine above ground. So that's kind of where I came from. I got my degrees from Glasgow University, which is the third oldest university in Britain. It was 1581? Yeah, founded in 1581. So it was there a few years. I'm one of 10 children, and the first time I get paid for teaching, right, was August of 1980, which is probably older than some of your parents. So that's how long I've been teaching. I still don't know what I'm doing, but at least I have fun doing it. So hopefully that's one thing I get that you'll get is that we have fun. So let's move on to this syllabus. A lot of this is stuff you just go and read. You know, I'll be rattling off a whole load of things and, you know, take in what you can, but you can go back and just read it right when you need to know. A lot of this is duplicate information. Prerequisites. You can't take this class unless you've got the correct prerequisites, which I'm assuming virtually all of you have. And that is like you did 141 here and got, you know, got 2.1 or something, right? Or a 3.9, or you tested into it in some way. You need this technology. There's a link. You can get loaners from the college. You know, you can get a computer loaner, for instance, if your computer dies on you. That's the link you would use. You don't need a physical textbook because WebAssign has an electronic version of it, an ebook, right? So you can save money that way. And what are the important dates? Well, here are lots of dates. The most important ones, I think, are the holidays. So if you're superstitious, as I am, Friday the 13th is a good day to have off, because only bad things happen on Friday the 13th if you're superstitious like I am. Monday the 30th is a holiday. I believe that's the only two that we have. Our midterm exam and our final exams are in these time slots. The course is 11 weeks, technically it's 11 weeks. And what you're looking at here is what's going to happen in any given week. So for instance, this week we're going to be doing sections 5.1, the unit circle, and 5.2, the trig ratios. Each week we have one test and it's online, and it's going to be called Online Test 1, and it's going to be on these two topics. All the homework and that online test have to be done by Sunday midnight. So you have a week and you've got until Sunday midnight of that week to finish everything, including your online test. The online test doesn't have any particular time. You could do it 2 a.m. on Saturday if you felt like it, right? You can do it anytime. Let's show you now what WebAssign looks like. This is WebAssign. If I click on this one here, unit circle, this is, let's see if we can make this a little bit bigger. This is what WebAssign, if you've done WebAssign before, you're familiar with it, but if you're not, this is it. You have questions, and these boxes, you fill in the answers. So you might do some working on paper, but the answers get filled in boxes. So you click on that one, right? And let's say that the right answer is 5/3, right? So hit a little fraction button, 5 on the top, oops, 5 on the top, 3 on the bottom. And then, well, I'm not on student mode, am I? No. Well, normally you would hit, I'm in professor mode, you would then hit a little box here, which would say submit. And if you're right, a nice big green tick appears. And if you're wrong, a nasty red cross appears. You get like 5 shots. So if you make a mistake, you can redo the question, figure out, oh, it was plus, or it was 3, or it was 7, right? You can fix it. So you get 5 shots. Your online, you can start your homework and leave it and come back a day later and do 2 more questions, right? The homework is in and out whenever you feel like it. The online test is different. When you click on the online test, a clock will start and you have to finish it in that time period, right? So you've got like 2 hours to finish your test, right? So don't start your test until you're sure that you've got enough time to do what you need to do. In the homework, if you get it wrong, you do it again, you get it wrong, you do it a 3rd time, you get it right. It don't matter how many shots you take, you get the points as long as you get the right answer. I suggest strongly that when you're doing, oh, Lena, what's your question?
Hi, I was just wondering if, how long are the tests typically? Like how many questions are they?
The questions is a bit hard. I mean, I could say a number, like typically they're about 6 questions, but that's not really a good description of what's happening, because some questions can take you 20 minutes and some questions can take you 2 minutes. And so you might
Okay.
get 10 questions one test and only 5 the next test. It's
Okay.
more, it takes you about an hour to do it.
Thank you.
But I give you 2 because I figure out, you know, you might make a mistake or so on. Right.
Thank you.
So you can keep trying until you do it. Well, until you're 5 guesses. I would suggest strongly that when you're doing homework, that you do it as soon after class is finished, that topic, right? So even today when we're finished, you could go into that homework and maybe do the first 6 questions. And it's going to help you test, do I actually understand the lesson? Because a lot of the time what you do is you'll nod and you say, yeah, that makes sense. I understand what he's talking about. I could do that. But you don't really understand it unless you do questions and you have to do problems and answer them and put fractions in or whatever the answer happens to be. And then you suddenly say, oh, maybe I don't understand it as much as I thought I did. So homework is a way to practice, to get good at it. Homework's a way to figure out whether you actually do understand it as well. And if you do it straight after the class, as soon as you can, it'll be faster and it'll help you to absorb that information and keep it in your head, right? The worst way, and students do this, and you know, I can't affect how you do things. They wait to Sunday, 9 p.m. and they say, oh, I'm just going to do my homework and my test and it'll be fine. That is a bad way of doing it. I won't be able to help you, right? You can't see me during office hour on Tuesday, right? Because you haven't done anything. You don't know what you don't know, right? Because you haven't done it yet. I can't help you by Sunday, right? Me and my wife will be watching a movie, right? I won't be any use to you. And, you know, boom, you screwed up a whole week's homework and maybe a test at the end. Because if you don't know how to do something and I ask you the same kind of question in the test, right, you're going to have trouble. Right? So do it as soon as you can. That way I can help you. I can fix it for you before it gets too serious. And there we go. Now, our homework for this coming week is 5.1 and 5.2. Do you notice how 5.3 is here? But if you look over here, have you noticed, well, I haven't noticed, I better fix that. But that one there won't be due until another week later, right? So the only 2 that you need to worry about are 5.1 and 5.2 for this week. Let's pause for a minute. Any more questions? Right. As I say, I'm hitting you with a lot, but okay. Now, week 1 then, those 2 sections and a test. Week 2, those 3 sections and a test. Then, you know, 3 more sections and test. There's your midterm on Monday, the 9th of May, and it's going to cover whatever we get through in the first 5 weeks. And then week 6, week 7, week 8, week 9, week 10, and then we do a final review on Monday, and then we do a final exam. Now, the final review isn't a test, it's just we go over whatever you want. Can we do the cosine rule again, right? Anything that you think might be helpful. Are we good? Right. Here are the things that you're going to learn. Don't cheat, which is that one. Oh, since we're on the don't cheat academic honesty thing, online is quite different from in class, right? There are a lot of things that are different. You've got a video of me instead of me being here and saying it for starters. When you're doing your homework, you can use any resource you like. In fact, when you do WebAssign, they've got little buttons called practice another where you can actually click it and it'll take you through another example of that question. So if you were getting stuck on one, instead of using up your 5 guesses, you might hit that button and try a little practice just to see, you know, what's going wrong. You can also click on it and it'll take you in some questions to a point in the ebook that goes over it. You got all sorts of cool stuff like that. When you're doing the online test, it's open book, which means you can have your textbook and your notes and whatever you might have had to help you, and then you can use that to help you answer the tests, okay? So that's how that's going to work. The midterm and the final, you're not here again, right? You're at home, so they're different. The midterm and the final will take place during a Zoom lesson. That means I will be watching you. That way I can tell your big brother, Lana or your little brothers, whatever one you might have, are not behind you telling you what to do. And you are allowed to use in those tests anything that's physically written down, right? So if you've got written notes, you can use them as well. But you can't, on those or any of the other examples, you can't go to tutoring service or use software to answer it or anything, right? That's not allowed. But if you've physically written them down as notes, you can use your notes. Now, some of you may have access services. If you want to hang about at the end and tell me what I can do, it might simply mean that you need extra time in the exams. I can fix that for you, or whatever else it might be. Well, let's talk about how you get graded. There are 5 things. The first one is participation, right? And that's a typo, that's 50 points, not 40. There are basically 10 weeks times 5. There are 50 days, 50 participation points. Every time you turn up, you get one. That's your participation. If you do your homework and do not ask for an extension, so homework's due on Sunday midnight. Homework, by the way, just homework. But if you don't have enough time to finish it, you send me an email and I'll give you extra days to finish your homework. But when that happens, you don't get that extra participation point for finishing your homework on time. There is no extension for tests. Tests have to be done by Sunday. If you screwed up and didn't have enough time to get your homework finished and therefore you're not ready for your test, you're just going to take a hit in that test. But the good news is that only 8 out of the 10 count. So you can have 2 disasters in your test and it won't affect your grade, right? They just get through away, right? But I wouldn't do, I wouldn't plan on doing that, but I mean, it's a little buffer in case it happens. So that's going to actually say 50 when I type it in, right? So you could theoretically get 112% on participation, because the participation points for doing your homework in time are kind of like extra credit. If you miss a day, for instance, right, because you were at the dentist, and that'll happen. If you don't do the homework for that week, won't that participation point fill in the day that you missed? So again, it won't affect your grade, right? So doing your homework in time is a way of putting days in the bank in case you miss a day because you catch the flu, right? It's also a way of getting some extra points, right? Improving your grade. We've talked about homework. When you communicate with me, you really should only do it 2 ways. Email me, drobertson@olympic.edu, or do Canvas. Those I get and I can answer them, and I'm pretty good at answering quickly. WebAssign has things called ask for an extension or ask your teacher for help, or I haven't a name, I can't remember what they're all called. Don't use any of them. Don't click on that button that says ask my professor for help, because I don't get that message. I physically have to go into WebAssign, find you to realize that you've actually even asked me to do that, right? That's not good. Just shoot me an email saying, I'm having trouble with question 9, section 5.2. Could you give me some help, right? Just email me. If you want an extension, don't hit the ask for an extension button. Again, I don't get them. They don't arrive. Whatever happens in the ether, they disappear. Just email me saying, hey, busy week this week, could I have an extension to my homework? And I will do it, right? Let's pause here. Any questions? No? Okay. You got online tests. They have to be done 1 a week. No extensions. Midnight Sunday. You get 2 hours to do. They won't take 2 hours. They should take an hour. But 2 hours just makes it so you don't need to worry about rushing. Midterm exam, 20% of your grade. That's going to be on the first 5 weeks' work. That's going to be done through a Zoom meeting. Final exam, I should say. That's going to be 30% of your grade, and that is going to be on Friday the 17th in our case. So you get all your grades, you put it together. That's your GPA letter. Now, we have tutoring. There are two kinds of tutoring Olympic College provides. The first one is we're doing on ground. So if you're in Olympic College, Bremerton, you can just drop into the tutoring service. It's in the Mesh office, Mesh building. Can't remember what number it is, but you know what. Facing the library, that one. And you can get free help there. And they have e-tutoring. So if you go into Olympic College and you go to tutoring, you'll be able to click on there. And e-tutoring is basically, I believe, I don't know, has anybody done it? I don't want to tell a lie here because I've never done it. Is e-tutoring just like me and you in a video and somebody helps you? Or is it like you send emails and they send emails back? Has anybody figured out what e-tutoring looks like? Because to be honest, I don't know.
I've
Right.
done it before for ASL and it was over Zoom.
Right, so it looks like it might be over Zoom, although ASL might be an exception because it would have to be over Zoom, right? Because of the visuals. Someone else said they'd seen it. Has anybody done it? Anyone else done the e-tutoring?
We have done it once, I believe, and it was just like over emails.
Right, you're breaking up there, but I think you said it's like over Zoom. That's what I think you said. Okay, so it's free, right?
My
You've
connection
already
is
paid
really
for it.
bad right now. The weather's terrible.
I hear you. I heard that part, so that was better. Did you say it's over Zoom?
Over email.
I lost you again. Okay. I guess you'll find out when you do it. What else? When I say see me, that means officer, right? That's a Zoom meeting. That's at 9 o'clock. Or send me an email and I'll reply to you as soon as I can. There's lots of resources in Canvas. Some people who know each other email each other. Hey, Janice, I'm having trouble with this. Could you help me? You know, that kind of thing. Or over the phone. That works probably just as well. Totally okay with that. You should already have figured this out, you know, if you want to be successful. But do everything on time, right? Do the homework as soon as you can. Don't wait until the last minute. It very often doesn't work well. Get help as soon as you have a problem. Fix it quick. Definitely organize your time, especially when it's coming up for midterms and finals. Try and figure out some way or other of getting an extra, you know, day here or half a day here where you're doing nothing but, you know, getting ready for the final, right? Or getting ready for the midterm, because they are worth a lot of points, and you know, you want to be as prepared as you can. And then the usual things that we have, and that's it. Any questions before we get started then on the topics? As I said, I threw 100 pieces of information at you, and that's okay. So don't worry too much about, I can't remember what you said about homework. Can't you go in and read about it again? Well, let's move to our topic then. What are we doing in Trig? Well, it's pre-calc 2. Trig is the second part. The one that you've already done, the first part, is really, you know, 141. 141, in my opinion, was functions, how you draw them, how you sketch them, right? Things like that. Pre-calc 2, which is Trig, is all about geometry. It's all about angles and triangles in particular, and the properties and how you can find angles and sides and solve problems that involve shapes. And this is our little list of what we're going to be doing over the next few days. So check that one off. Well, let's look at the equation of what's called the unit circle. I apologize for the fact I cannot draw well. It's not one of my best things. Can you pretend that's a circle? It's as good as you're going to get with me. And we're going to look at what's called the unit circle. In trig, the unit circle is a biggie. It's very useful. And basically, it's a circle whose radius is 1. And because its radius is 1, would you agree it's pretty obvious that you can figure out the coordinates of those points, right? From the center, the origin, 1 in any direction generates that circle. We call that one circle the unit circle, right? A unit just means the one circle, right? A unit circle. It has an equation. X squared plus y squared equals 1. So if you took every single point in the xy plane, any point you liked, and you squared the x coordinate and you added the square of the y coordinate, they would equal 1. So far, so good. So how would we be able to solve questions like this? Suppose I had a point here. I'm going to call it P. And its x coordinate was a half. One of the questions that you're asked in your homework then is to find the missing y coordinate. Right, so I know its x coordinate is half. I'd like to know what this missing y coordinate is. And you use this equation to do it. Because x squared, well, since x is a half, becomes a half squared, plus y squared equals 1. And so you now have 1/4 plus y squared equals 1. Essentially, aren't we solving an equation here? We're trying to find the value of y. And I make up rules or names for rules. This particular rule I call, as long as you do it to both sides, it's okay rule. I like rules to tell me what I'm doing. So as long as you do it to both sides, it's okay rule. What should I do to both sides to get closer to solving for y? What would I do to both sides?
Subtract a quarter.
Right. Oops. Caught it in time. That's meant to say 3/4. Makes sense, right? 1, take away a quarter, leaves you with 3/4. I like that name. As long as you do it to both sides, it's okay rule. Aren't you allowed to add things to both sides, subtract things from both sides, divide both sides by 10, multiply both sides by 5, you know, all sorts of things. As long as you do it to both sides, right? It's okay. So what should I do to both sides now to find out what y is? I know what y
Square root of
squared
both
is.
sides.
You take the square root. And a lot of people tend to forget this, but technically speaking, if you take the square root of something, there are 2 possible answers, isn't there? It could be positive the square root, or it could be negative the square root. Little side issue. Imagine I said to you x squared was 9. If you take the square root of both sides, you get, it could be plus 3, but couldn't it also be negative 3? Right? Aren't both of those equally correct solutions, right? In other words, there's 2 different solutions. And a lot of people forget this plus minus. Now, there are almost always going to be just one solution to any particular situation. Have you noticed where I put the point P, right here? Can you see visually, isn't that going to have a positive y coordinate? Can you see just where it is? So because I know that, only because I knew it, can I now say it's positive the square root of 3/4? Are you comfortable about why I chose that answer and not the other one, right? For instance, if I put my P where my finger is here, right? Wouldn't I be picking the negative answer for the y coordinate? Would you agree this one has a negative y coordinate? So they're very often, they're going to give you a clue to which of the plus or minus you should choose. In this case, the clue is it's a picture, right? Now, Next stage is a bit fussy, but you have to do it. Let me tell you what you don't do. We love calculators because they save us having to do stuff, right? So you are not, say that again, not allowed to do this. Oh yeah, square root of 3/4. Ugh, okay, I'll write 3 or 4 decimal places down and call it good. We do not want decimal answers unless the question specifically, and it very, very rarely ever does this, give me the answer to 2 decimal places, right? If you hear that phrase, what's the y coordinate to 2 decimal places, then you do this thing, right? But most of the time, they want what we would call an exact value, which means you're now going to have to do some math that you haven't done for a while. We have to take this answer and make it pretty. That's what I call it. Actually, I call this process style points. So you're trying to make it look pretty. So the first thing I'm going to do is split it into 2 distinct square roots. You know you're allowed to do that with a square root of a fraction. Can't you find the square root at the top and the square root at the bottom? Agreed? That's allowed. And I can't really do much with the square root of 3, but can't I do the bottom and call it that? So as far as we're concerned, that's actually the answer that we want to see, right? The pretty version, not the ugly square root of 3/4, but the pretty version, square root of 3/2. And you might think, well, that's just as ugly as that, but can you pretend that that's pretty, right? And that's ugly, right? So what does pretty look like? Pretty tends to mean in mathematics simplified. Simplified in mathematics means that you should never have square roots of fractions unless you couldn't avoid it, right? And so that would be the right answer. Now, I want to show you some situations that are going to happen in style points. Imagine that you get your answer and it looks like that, because it could happen, right? The y coordinate looks like that. That is not considered the simplest version. And you might say, well, it looks just as good as that answer, and it does. But one of the rules in simplification is that the fraction, when you have one, the bottom isn't allowed to be a square root. It's okay to be a 2, but it's not okay to be a square root of 2. Can anybody remember how you simplify a fraction that looks like that? The jargon is called rationalizing the denominator, and you probably should have learned it in Math 99, because that's when I've taught Math 99, that's when I do it. Can you remember how to fix this guy?
Multiply both sides by square root of 5.
Yeah. Essentially what I'm going to do here, what you said is right, I'm just maybe saying it slightly differently. If you multiply anything by 1, aren't you not changing its value just the way it looks? So this is a special version of 1, root 5 over root 5. Now what does that do? Well, it makes the top 3 square root of 5 and the bottom's 5. And we consider that as the answer, right? So that's the 2 things that are likely to happen in these questions. You're going to get the square root of an ugly fraction, almost guaranteed. And that's going to be split and made into this. If you split it and you get a square root in the bottom, which unfortunately can happen, you're going to fix it, right? By doing this root 5 over root 5 and making it look pretty. Okay, so when you hear me talking about style points, I'm talking about turning that guy into this and turning that guy into this. Okay, so when you hear me say style points, that's what I mean, right? I'm taking an ugly answer and I'm making it pretty. Are we good? Right. So if I tell you the x or the y coordinate of a point on the unit circle, you feel comfortable about the process of how to find the other missing coordinate. In this case, I told you the x was a half, and we found out that the y coordinate is root 3 upon 2. So still in that vein, because there's a lot of questions like that. Here's another version of my unit circle. And I'm going to introduce you to something you may have seen before. I hope you have. And that is what's called the quadrants. The XY plane, right? The coordinate system with the X and Y axis drawn the way I have is split into 4 quadrants, and they're called quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. So for instance, if you're in quadrant 1, aren't you in any point in this quarter here, right? This quadrant, this quarter, right? Would you agree that anything that's in the first quadrant, won't its coordinates be positive and positive? Does that make sense? X and Y positive coordinates. Now, if you're in the second quadrant, right, you're over here. And in the second quadrant, aren't you going to have a negative X coordinate, but a positive Y coordinate? Great. What would you get in the fourth quadrant? What would be the combination of X and Y for any point in this fourth quadrant?
Negative X and negative 1.
Oh, negative X? I like the negative for the second one, but what would the X coordinate, you know, if I randomly pick that point there where my finger is, would that have a positive or negative X coordinate?
Positive.
Yeah. But the negative one was right. And this one over here is the one that's negative and negative, right? Now, that's going to be used in some of the questions. So imagine I give you a point and I tell you that its Y coordinate is negative 1 over root 2. And I tell you that it's in the third quadrant. And you're being asked to find what the X coordinate of that point would be. Okay, so that would be a pretty standard homework question, right? Find the missing X coordinate of this point P. And you know it's on the unit circle, right? And you know that its Y coordinate is negative 1/2. Now you might say, well, I'll just plot it. Well, yeah, well, we could kind of plot it. Couldn't it be here? Oh, wait a minute, couldn't it also be here? Would you agree there's 2 places that would have a Y coordinate that's negative something, right? So we start with equation of a unit circle. I don't know what the X is, but I do know that the Y is that guy. Although that looks really ugly, it actually comes out quite nice. Isn't negative 1 over the square root of 2 times itself positive 1/2? You agree? Let me show you a different sign. Negative 1 over square root of 2 times itself. 2 negatives make it positive, and this 2 get you 1, and these 2 get you square root of 2 times square root of 2. You get 1/2. Agreed? Negative 1 over root 2 times itself is positive 1/2. So I now have x squared plus 1/2 equals 1. Okay, as long as you do it to both sides, it's okay, Ro. Tell me what to do to both sides.
Subtract 1/2 from both sides.
Great. What should I do to both sides now to find x?
It's square root of both sides.
Right. And technically speaking, there's a plus and a minus, isn't there? Agreed? Could be plus the square root of 1/2, could be negative square root of 1/2. Now, I've told you it's in the third quadrant. Since I've told you in the third quadrant, isn't it that guy there? Is the X coordinate positive or negative for that point there?
Negative.
Negative. So doesn't that really mean that guy? Do you think that's the answer I should put into WebAssembly? Or should we do style points on it? Do style points. Okay. Square root of 1 gets you 1. We got that guy. So far, so good. Now, WebAssign is sometimes, I don't like it, but I can't stop it doing this, is not as strict with style points as I'd like it to be. So there's a 50-50 chance that if you type that into WebAssign, it would give you the points. But doesn't that break one of my style point rules? Not just mine, but mathematicians. We don't like square roots in the bottom, do we? So the special version of 1 would be that, right? Root 2 over 2. And the 2 top guys get you negative root 2, and the bottom 2 guys get you 2. And there is your answer that you type in when you do your answer in WebAssign. Okay. Well, the last thing that we're going to do for today is take attendance, because that's how you get your participation points. So the way that I make it work is pretty straightforward. So let me close this window off and tell you how it's going to happen. Do you notice in the chat box, the little balloon thing? Click on it and just put in your last name. So Jacob, all I want you to put in is Miller. And Taylor, right, Ben, I only want you to put in Taylor. And that's it. As soon as you've done that, bye-bye. I'll see you.